A lot of long-reigning champions have been losing their belts recently, and more specifically, the ones I want to talk about here are Volkanovski, Izzy, and Usman. And something else I want to talk about is the fact that champions can almost never hold their belt past the age of 35. And I want to kind of get to the bottom of this and see why that happens. So let's do it. The first fighter I want to talk about is Volk. And so Volk has been the most recent long-reigning champion to lose his belt. And this one was surprising, but also not at the same time, because I believe Ilia Topuria is a once-in-a-while talent, and I think he's going to hold the belt for a long time. So I just think the one biggest factor is just the fact that Topuria is very good, and there's less fault on the side of Volk. But however, there's still some things for sure. First of all, Volk is coming off that horrible KO to Makhachev only about 4 months ago. And go back and watch that KO. It was a bad one. He took a lot of extra unnecessary damage to the head. His head was just bouncing off the cage. It was bad. I didn't like seeing that. And that was only 4 months ago, from this fight. And to come off that and jump right back in quick, another camp, another weight cut, no rest, and fighting another guy who's super dangerous like that, who can definitely KO you. Like, Ilya is the most dangerous fight in the division for him. And I mean, yeah, that was just a bad decision by Volk. Especially back to one of the main points of the video, at his age, 35. You definitely need some time to rest after getting KO'd like that, especially at that age. It makes it even more serious. Yeah, all these factors definitely play a part on why Volk lost. Now, Izzy's a little different to me because I don't look at Strickland the same way I looked at Topuria. Don't get me wrong, I did think Strickland had a good chance to beat Izzy, and I actually did pick him to win just because of his style. I thought it matched up well with Izzy, but at the same time, it was a very winnable fight for Izzy, and we know that just based on what Pereira did to Strickland. And obviously, Strickland was a massive underdog, but Izzy did look a little off to me in that fight. A lot of people don't see it that way. They just think Strickland dominated him, which he did, but Izzy did look a little older in that fight than his last few. And that's because he is getting older. And the same problem that caught up to Volk, it's too much activity and getting older and not resting. And it is tough when you're getting up there in age because you probably want to be more active and get the fights in because you know your time is ticking and that time is coming. But you also need to allow your body to rest. But yeah, same type of thing. Izzy lost his belt at 34 years old after holding it for years. I think the activity and the age is the most important factors as to why he lost. Now we get to Kamaru Usman, and now with him it's a little different again because he was about 50 seconds away from winning his first fight against Leon. And who knows, if he wins that, then maybe he still holds the belt to this day. It's hard to tell. But the thing is, it's similar to Volk in a way because after that KO, it just started looking downhill from there. He was just kind of never the same after that. But despite that, the second fight against Leon, he didn't do too bad. He looked pretty good. But his age and more specifically his bad knees that he always talks about really showed in that fight, which is just wear and tear on the body and getting old. Don't get me wrong, Usman has looked good in his last two fights despite losing. But you can clearly see the age, and that's the difference maker. But yeah, I just find it interesting how that specific number, or multiple numbers, however you see it, like 35, like age 35, and past that is where the fighter usually almost always goes straight downhill. And I feel like age like 33, 34 is like the last couple years of your prime. And then after that, you're just completely out of it. You guys have all seen that stat that Luke Thomas tweeted. I'll put it up on the screen if you haven't seen it. But yeah, I mean, just read this. Yeah, it's hard to count on a guy who's 35 or over. This tweet was also tweeted before Henry Cejudo versus Aljamain Sterling, as he states right there. And that was another one where the younger guy won. And it was also tweeted before Volk versus Topuria, which was another one where the younger guy won. The very younger guy, almost 10 years younger. And so, yeah, now that record, add two to that losing record. And, yeah, it's pretty crazy to put that in perspective. But, yeah, when it comes to the bigger weight classes, it definitely seems to be less of a factor because you're less likely to need speed and skill compared to the lower weights because you're just more big and bulky and rely more on your power, which makes sense why it's like that. The next question I want to try to answer is, where does the long-reigning champion go who's older, after they lose their belt. You know, like a champion who's held the belt for so long and they're so used to just defending it, and then they finally lose it, and they're at this point in their career where they're older. It's like, what do you do? Your decision making after that point really needs to be important. And it's a hard question to answer, but I'm going to give my opinion on what these guys can do, and specifically these three guys that I've talked about today. One option for all people is just to move up in weight towards the end of your career, just to avoid those brutal weight cuts at the older age, because those weight cuts are a big factor on why your body ages so quick as well. And yeah, this can definitely be a smart move for a lot of people. These three, though, let's just see. Starting with Volk, what should he do next? Now, the first thing I think is take time off, like an actual good amount of time. Don't hop right back in there like you always do. Take a good amount of time off, like over 6 months at the least, I think. So yeah, he needs to do that. And now when he comes back, though, what should he do? So should he move up to 155? Maybe not a terrible idea. Again, mostly just because of the weight cuts. But this might not be smart for him, considering he's already lost to the champ twice up there. So maybe he should just stay at his own weight class. He probably has a better chance of getting back to the belt there, in my opinion. But 155 does have some banger fights for him, if he just wants to do that. But knowing him, he wants to get back to that belt as soon as possible. So who should he fight at 145? In my opinion, not Topuria right away. Does he deserve a rematch? Yeah, for sure. I mean, holding the belt that long, of course he deserves it, but that doesn't mean he should do it. I would fight a contender, preferably someone who doesn't have a good chance of KOing you, just to get a break from that. I think a good option is the winner of Sterling and Cater coming up here at UFC 300. They fight in a couple months here, gives you some time to rest. I think the winner of that would be a great fight. And then if not that, maybe Mozar Evloev. I mean, he's right up there in the rankings. He doesn't have the most power. I think it's a safer fight for him. So yeah, I think one of those three guys. Knowing Volk, he's not going to want to wait. He's going to want to get right back in there, which kind of sucks. I hope he doesn't do that, but that's my opinion. Those three guys, most other top contenders he already beat, so it would be hard to match him up with them. Yeah, I think one of those three fighters that I mentioned. And if he does fight Topuria again, he needs a good amount of time off first before he does that, in my opinion. And I know he wants that rematch. It's Volk. He wants to get right back in there. He's already said it. So yeah. Anyway, that's my opinion on what Volk should do. And I hope he does one of those things that I mentioned. Moving on to Izzy, what should he do? First of all, I do like that he has taken some time off. I hope he talks to Volk and talks him into doing that. Because yeah, he's done the right thing. He's taken his time. He's not hopping right back in there on UFC 300 or whatever. But yeah, I think he has a lot of options, more than Volk. Because Izzy's loss wasn't even as close to as brutal as Volk's last two. So he has some options. And I think it's up to what he and the UFC want to do. A big problem with long-reigning champs is after they lose their belt, it's hard to match them up with a lot of the guys in the division because they've already beaten them. And that's a problem that he has for sure. But one option would be just to give him a title shot against Dricus. I think this would only happen because it was supposed to in the past and they have a grudge match against each other and it's just a good fight that the UFC would probably be interested in making. Other than that, though, I don't really think he deserves it just because he lost to Strickland. But like I said, the UFC can still give it to him if they want. The other option would be just have him fight Strickland again, a rematch, and then the winner of that gets the title shot. I kind of like this idea, and I haven't really heard many people talking about it. So yeah, I think that would probably be the number one option, what I would do if I was the matchmakers, but I'm not sure. They don't really seem to like doing rematches unless it's a title fight, and that's what this would be. So, but yeah, I think it's a good option because I think Strickland, there's a very good case to just give him a rematch, but then Izzy's there too. And it was kind of a close fight between them, so you could make that rematch, have a definitive winner, and then give them the shot. I like that. I've also heard some talks about Izzy versus Hamzat. And I guess you could do that, but I'd rather see Hamzat fight another contender first. I think Izzy's too high up for him. He needs to fight someone who's actually in the division and win that, and then maybe you can give him Izzy. But other than that, I don't really see many options. You would have to match him up against someone who he's already fought, because that's like everyone else in the division, and who he's already beat. Maybe Whitaker or Cannonier rematch, because those fights were close. And yeah, other than that, that's pretty much it. That's pretty much all you could do with him. And last but not least, we got Usman. Now, he's a little different because he's older than the other guys. And in my opinion, he's a little more closer to retirement than the other guys. But with that being said, he still has the skill to make a run if he wants to, for sure. First of all, I like the move up to middleweight. I think he should definitely stay there and make a run. He's already lost twice to Leon at welterweight, so just let that be. Make a run at middleweight. Way easier weight cut, so just stay there. It's way easier for you as you're getting older. New division, more exciting too. Fresh names. So I really like the move up to middleweight. Hope he stays there. But who are some options for him to fight at middleweight? And I think it makes sense to give him someone in the top 10. Just because of all the work he's done, former champion, long-reigning champion. Close fight against Hamzat, and Hamzat's ranked number 11, I believe. So I think it just makes sense. Just give him someone up there. So yeah, if that's the case, there's lots of interesting fights. And a few specifically that I would like to see would be maybe Paulo Costa. He's coming off that loss, and it was a good fight, close fight. So he'll drop in the rankings a bit, which I think makes sense for Usman. So yeah, that's probably my number one option. I really like that one. Number two would probably be Vettori, because he's also coming off a loss, and he doesn't have much direction in this division. Lost to Izzy twice, lost to a lot of other guys. So yeah, that's probably my second option. I'd like that fight as well. Very winnable for him. And this one might be pushing it a little bit, but Cannonier, he's a little higher up in the rankings, and he also has potential for a title shot at this point in his career. But I think give him Usman, and then winner of that could be right on the cusp of a title shot. I think it actually makes a little more sense. And the bigger reason, I just think it would be a great fight. I think the fans would like it. I would definitely like to see it. So yeah, that's what I think of that. If they wanted to give him someone a little lower in the rankings to start off, I wouldn't mind that either, and that would make sense. So they could do that too. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much it. I just wanted to discuss all these things, why these things happen and so forth, and just give my opinion on where these specific fighters should go with their career next. These are probably the 3 longest reigning champions in the recent times, and guys who are at the top of the sport. And now they're not, so I think it's interesting to discover, and I think it's just interesting to figure out where they're going to go and what they're going to do next at the later stage of their career. So yeah, that's pretty much it.